Maybe you've felt this before. Someone says something to you that instantly feels wrong. Not harsh enough for you to explode right there. But not harmless enough for you to truly ignore it either. And the worst part, everyone around you heard it. Some people laughed. Some stayed quiet. Some acted like nothing happened. And you just stood there while your mind started racing. You tried to stay calm. Tried not to make a scene. Tried to look mature. So in the end, you just smiled and let it go. But hours later, that conversation was still stuck in your head. You started replaying it over and over. I should have said this. I shouldn't have stayed quiet. I should have reacted right away. And the more you think about it, the more you realize what hurts isn't only what they said. It's the feeling of helplessness you had in that moment. Because deep down, you know exactly what they were doing. They weren't just joking. They were testing your boundaries. They wanted to see, would you push back? Would you defend yourself? Or would you stay quiet again just to keep the peace? And the scary part is, a lot of polite, kind, gentle people have been disrespected for far too long simply because they kept choosing silence in moments like these. If you've ever experienced this feeling, comment 9 below. I want to know how many people are silently dealing with this kind of disrespect every single day. This is what most people don't realize. Most disrespect doesn't begin with hatred. It begins with observation. People are constantly watching each other. Especially in social relationships. They notice how you react when someone interrupts you. How you react when someone dismisses you. How you react when someone crosses your boundaries. And from those small moments, they decide how far they can go with you. That's why kind people are often treated worse. Not because they're weak, but because they're too used to tolerating things just to keep the peace. They laugh it off, stay silent, endure it quietly, and slowly, other people begin to believe you will accept anything. That's when respect starts to disappear. Because in social psychology, silence is often interpreted as permission, especially by people who like manipulation, control, or the feeling of having power over others. They are not looking for fairness. They are looking for limits. And if they can't see those limits, they will keep pushing further, little by little, until one day, you barely recognize when you lost your own voice. But here's the part no one really tells you. You do not need to become aggressive to stop being disrespected. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to intimidate people. You don't need to win every argument. Because the truth is, the strongest people are usually not the loudest ones. They don't try to control the room. But whenever they speak, people naturally pay attention. Why? Because they have something most people lack. Boundaries. Calmness with boundaries creates a completely different kind of presence. It makes people feel, this person is not easy to manipulate. And the interesting part is, toxic people are often very good at reading other people's energy. They can quickly tell who is afraid of conflict, is afraid of upsetting others, is afraid of being disliked, is afraid of disappointing people. So they keep testing limits. At first, it's small things. A joke that goes slightly too far. Interrupting you. A subtle tone of disrespect. But if there is no clear response, things slowly get worse. Because many people don't realize this. Every time you tolerate disrespect without setting a boundary, you are silently teaching people how to treat you. And eventually, you become exhausted. Not because of one person, but because too many people became comfortable crossing your boundaries without facing any consequences. But today, that starts to change. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 very simple behaviors that make toxic people start thinking twice around you. Not because you became more aggressive, but because they realize you are no longer easy to manipulate. I used to think being mature meant staying silent. I used to believe the calmer person would always win in the end. So every time someone crossed a line, I told myself, just let it go. It's not worth it. Don't make things more uncomfortable. And for a long time, I truly believed I was doing the right thing. Until I started noticing something strange. The more easygoing I became, the more people took me for granted. They interrupted me more often, spoke to me with less respect. Some people even started acting as if my feelings didn't matter at all. And what bothered me the most was this. Many of those people weren't even bad people. They simply became used to the fact that, no matter what they did, I would never react. I remember one night, after a very uncomfortable conversation, I sat alone in my car for almost an hour. Not because the words were deeply offensive, but because for the first time, I realized something. I had stayed silent too many times just to keep other people comfortable. And while trying so hard to become an easy person to deal with, I slowly lost the ability to protect myself. That was the moment everything started to change. I finally understood. Being calm does not mean allowing people to cross your boundaries. And ever since I changed that, the way people treat me changed very quickly too. One of the first things that makes people start losing respect for you is when you constantly feel the need to explain yourself. Toxic people love this, because every time you over-explain, you unconsciously place yourself in a position where you need approval. Pay attention to this. When someone questions you, most people immediately change their energy. They speak faster, laugh nervously. Their voice becomes less certain. They try to prove they're not wrong. They're not selfish. They didn't mean anything bad. But in that exact moment, the psychological control already starts to shift. Because the other person realizes they are making you emotionally unbalanced. And manipulative people are extremely sensitive to that. So next time, instead of explaining too much, try saying something simple like this. That works for me. That's it. No arguing. No defending yourself. No trying to make everyone agree with you. At first, this will feel uncomfortable, because you're used to constantly needing to justify yourself. But pay close attention to what happens next. A lot of people immediately lose momentum, because they were expecting defensiveness, emotional reactions, or a long explanation. But what they received instead was certainty. And calm certainty is very difficult to manipulate. Sometimes, real confidence is simply this. No longer feeling the need to explain yourself to everyone. If you've ever had the habit of over-explaining, comment 1. Toxic people rarely disrespect you in a direct way. Most of the time, they do it in a much more subtle way. A joke that doesn't really feel like a joke. A certain look. A comment that sounds harmless. But everyone in the room can feel that something is off. And here's why they do it. Ambiguity protects them from accountability. If you react strongly, they can always say, I was just joking. You're too sensitive. It's not that serious. That's their psychological game. They want to make you uncomfortable, without ever looking like the bad person. So instead of getting angry, or staying silent, do something very simple. Make them clarify. Look at them calmly and ask, what do you mean by that? Or, can you explain what you mean? The most important part is this. Say it in a calm voice. No sarcasm. No attacking. No losing control. And you'll be surprised by what happens next. A lot of people immediately back off. Because the moment they are forced to clearly say what they actually meant, they lose the safety of ambiguity. Suddenly, everyone in the room starts seeing the game more clearly. And in that moment, the psychological power begins to shift. This is what many people don't understand. Manipulative people are strongest when everything stays vague. But once the truth has to be spoken clearly, many of them become surprisingly insecure. That's why calm people are very difficult to bully. They don't overreact, but they also don't let things slide in silence. If you've ever dealt with those jokes that felt more like insults? Comment 2. One thing manipulative people absolutely hate is not being able to read your emotions. Because most of their power comes from controlling other people's emotional reactions. They say something uncomfortable, then watch you closely. They try to make you angry, make you lose control, make you overreact. And the moment you show a strong emotional reaction, they know they've gotten to you. That's why toxic people often repeat the same behaviors again and again. Not because the words themselves matter that much, but because they enjoy the feeling of being able to control someone else's emotional state. But everything starts to change when you become harder to read. Not in a fake cold way. Not by pretending to be too cool. But through genuine calmness. The kind where someone tries to provoke you, and your energy still stays steady. You don't rush to react. You don't rush to explain yourself. You don't rush to prove anything. And that silence starts creating pressure in the opposite direction. Because now, they can no longer measure their influence over you. This makes a lot of people deeply uncomfortable. Human beings naturally want to know whether they are affecting someone or not. But when someone stands in front of you and cannot read your emotional state, their confidence starts disappearing very quickly. That's why truly strong people rarely need to do too much. Their emotional stability alone creates a sense that they cannot easily be shaken. And sometimes, the thing that makes people respect you the most is not aggression. It's calmness they cannot control. If you're the type of person who gets pulled away by emotions easily. Comment 3. Most people usually fall into one of two extremes. Either they stay silent and tolerate everything, or they suppress their emotions for too long, then suddenly explode. But truly strong people usually do neither. They communicate their boundaries before their emotions spiral out of control. This is something many people were never taught. A boundary spoken calmly is often far more powerful than anger. Because when you lose your temper, people only see emotion. But when you calmly set a limit, people begin to see self-respect. For example, when someone keeps speaking to you disrespectfully, instead of arguing, try saying, "I don't like the direction this conversation is going." Or, "If this continues, I'm going to end this conversation here." No yelling. No threats. No trying to appear intimidating. Just clarity. And that alone surprises a lot of people. Because most manipulative people are used to others either silently tolerating everything, or reacting emotionally and losing control. But they are not used to someone who is calm, clear, and fully willing to walk away when disrespected. That's when they realize something important. You are no longer as easy to access as before. And this is what completely changes the dynamic. Not aggression, but the moment people understand their behavior now has consequences. A lot of people will change their attitude immediately after that. Not because they suddenly became kinder, but because they realized you finally started respecting yourself. And once you truly do that, other people can usually feel it very quickly. If you're the type of person who stays silent for too long and only explodes afterward. Comment 4. This is probably the hardest part of this entire video. Because real indifference cannot be faked. A lot of people try to act cold. They pretend they don't care. They have no emotions. Nothing affects them. But deep inside, they are still completely controlled by other people's opinions. And emotionally manipulative people notice that very quickly. They can sense when you still crave validation, attention, or the feeling of being accepted. That's why they keep testing your boundaries. Because as long as they can still affect your emotions, they still feel powerful. But at some point, you begin to change. You stop feeling the need to win every argument. You stop needing everyone to understand you. You stop trying to explain your worth to people who never truly respected you in the first place. And in that moment, everything starts to feel different. Because people can clearly sense when they no longer control your emotional state. That's when provocations stop working. Sarcastic comments lose their effect. And toxic people slowly lose interest in you. This is what many people don't understand. The most intimidating person in the room is usually not the most aggressive one. It's the person who no longer depends too heavily on anyone's approval in that room. They don't need to win every confrontation. Their calm presence alone creates the feeling that they cannot easily be shaken. And sometimes, the thing that frustrates people the most is realizing they no longer have power over you. If you're learning how to rely less on other people's opinions. Comment 5. And in the end, this entire story was never really just about toxic people. It was about you. About the moment you stopped betraying yourself just to keep other people comfortable. Because so many people have lived for too long in a state of being afraid to upset others, being afraid of being disliked, being afraid of tension, being afraid of being seen as difficult. So they stay silent. They keep tolerating things. They keep giving people more chances, even while they themselves are slowly becoming emotionally exhausted. But one day, you begin to realize something. Real peace does not come from pleasing everyone. It comes from this: no longer allowing people to cross your boundaries so easily. And once that changes, everything else begins to change too. The way you sit, the way you look at people, the way you walk into a room, even your silence starts carrying a different kind of energy. People can feel it, not because you are trying to appear powerful, but because finally, you stopped asking for permission to be respected. That's when your presence begins to change. You no longer feel the need to constantly prove your worth. You stop chasing acceptance from everyone around you. You stop feeling the need to endlessly explain yourself. And the interesting part is this: when you truly respect yourself, many people around you naturally begin changing the way they treat you too. It's not magic. It's human psychology. People can always sense how you personally value yourself. And most of the time, the world will treat you according to the standards you accept for yourself. If there's one thing you should remember after this video, it's this: you do not need to become a cold person to stop being disrespected. And you don't need to win every argument either. Sometimes, real strength is simply the ability to stay calm, set boundaries, and walk away from places where you are no longer respected. Because the truth is, toxic people will always exist. At work, in relationships, sometimes even inside your own family. You cannot control all of them, but you can control what you accept, what you allow, and how you respond. And once that changes, the entire dynamic of your life starts changing too. Maybe not instantly, but little by little, you begin to feel less manipulated, less afraid of disappointing people, and far more at peace. Because in the end, you are no longer living just to be accepted by others. If this video described something you've personally felt, comment, "I deserve respect." And if you know someone who is silently dealing with disrespect every single day, send this video to them. Because maybe this will be the moment they finally start learning how to protect themselves for the first time.